To welcome everyone to the Chang Robotics Brand Call. It's July 24, and it's great to see everybody. Welcome, and my name is Don Kapner. I will be your host today and moderator for several of the special guests we have on today's Brand Call. I'm so pleased to see everyone and look forward to your questions. And of course, as has been in the past, you can put those questions into the Q&A section. Look at the navigation bar on the top of your screen, hit Q&A, and go ahead and put in questions, and we'll try to field as many as we can towards the end of the webinar. So again, I want to welcome everyone. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to go forward. So at this point, let's go ahead and introduce Matthew Chang. Matthew is the general partner and also the founder of Chang Robotics. And Matthew has a distinguished background, a Georgia Tech engineer extraordinaire, also MBA from Jacksonville University, where I was his dean at the time. So Matthew, I will pass the baton to you.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And for the audience, Dr. Kapner is still my dean. So I think that's a perpetual title. But yeah, let's jump into it and welcome everybody. We're glad you're here for call number 3. So just like to give you some current news with what's happening with the company Chang Robotics. And so we're excited to announce that we are now performing engineering and software services for a new e-commerce center in Memphis, Tennessee. Obviously, as with all of our projects, they're highly confidential, but what I can tell you is a lot of the great products that you would order for gifts or hope to receive as gifts off of the internet or in an e-commerce fashion come from this facility. So it's very important for brand recognition to a lot of companies, and we're just excited to be a part of it, helping to make robotic systems and e-commerce delivery and e-commerce fulfillment more efficient. Another exciting update is that we have sponsored the federal grant application for a top 3 U.S. airport to convert some of their ground fleet to autonomous. And we're very excited for what that's going to look like. As soon as the federal announcements come out, we'll be able to talk about which airport it is and what the scope of services is. But for now, we can just leave it that you can expect autonomous stuff to be coming to a major airport near you in the near future. And we've really moved from where this is pie in the sky stuff to where it's happening now. And we're actually delivering project execution plans under timelines, and we're putting that in print to the federal government. So we're very excited about that. And then another major milestone is one of our portfolio companies that Chang Robotics has invested heavily in and co-founded, Kodiak Technologies, has closed their pre-seed round. So we're very happy to be graduating from the kind of friends and family and angel round, and now we're gearing up for the institutional level investment that comes with a real seed round. As part of that, we have built the prototype vehicle. I'm getting pictures in daily from the build team at our manufacturing plant in Idaho that show me what this vehicle looks like. And of course, we have some media announcements that we'll be doing towards the tail end of the call about statements around what that vehicle is and why it's unique to the industry. But it's an electric vehicle company, and our company was the founder of the company. Okay, another major milestone as we try to bring vision to reality, we try to bring the future into the current, is that we are now in full deployment of a healthcare autonomous robot system. These robots are designed to help nurses. We're all aware of the national nursing shortage, and this has been a really big focus for us over the last year, is how can we bring technology to help nurses and make their jobs easier, thereby making hospitals more efficient and making the care experience for patients better. So we're very happy to be deploying a full-scale deployment on every floor of a major hospital. And AI is a buzzword in the industry. Every CEO is out there saying, "How can I use AI in my business?" And of course, AI companies are seeing peak valuation. Our company's been using AI as part of our robotics platform for now almost 6 years. And so this is something we've become very good at and proficient at over the years, is getting autonomous and AI-enabled robotics deployed with workforces. So it's not just for factories. It's not just for e-commerce centers. This is coming to a hospital near you. And we're excited to see what that future looks like. And then I want to make sure that we introduce our management team. We've also talked about our investment vehicle where folks can invest alongside of Chang Robotics in the projects that we choose to invest in. And so that fund is called the Chang Robotics Fund. We have now down selected to our management team as we're putting that fund together. So I'm very excited that Dr. Kapner will be leading us as the fund administrator. We have the fund director, Forrest Hayes, who comes with Fund Launch Live. And we're super excited to have Forrest. He and I both had international careers when we were younger and ended up living in the same places all around the world in Europe and Asia. So we're excited to be connected in this way and to be collaborating. We also have a CFO selected for the fund. You'll be hearing from him today. That's Robert Sterling. And we've selected the compliance and controller position to be Phil Hudgens. And Phil's expertise is very vast. He was a former venture capitalist, and so we're excited for the depth and the compliance and just the rigor that he's going to bring to this investment vehicle. All right, and I'll turn it back to you for interviews, Don.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. We'll go ahead now and show you a pre-recorded interview I did just yesterday about this time. Angela Tenbrook, who heads up for the city of Jacksonville all the agriculture, ecology, urban agriculture, and all the land use policy. So I think you'll enjoy this. It's going to set the stage. And then, of course, we'll interview Tim Amlaw from Pure Harvests. So let's go ahead and roll the video. I think it's only 8 minutes. Angela, it's great to welcome you today to the Chang Robotics Brand Call.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story of how we can change the hunger landscape, building one farm at a time.
Well, Angela, let's start first with telling us a little bit about your current role in the city of Jacksonville and maybe one or two of the most important goals that are associated with this topic.
Yeah. So the new mayor decided, based upon what she saw as far as land use policy, food insecurity, and the lack of farming that was available in the largest county in the lower 48, she thought that we needed to think about ways to do something different. So I had worked as a transition subject matter expert, and then they brought me in to do science talks to explain a variety of things. So as I was moving along, I found it kind of interesting and an opportunity for our city, me to come home from my international work and to be able to drive my city in what I saw were best practices in this opportunity. And so really, I'm here there's a couple of high-level things that we have going on. In the latest data, what we have found is that in order to maintain food security within our city, we need continuous 37,000 acres of production. We currently have, at max, in just produce alone, we're not talking about protein. In produce alone, we have an aggregate of 108 acres. We are far below the opportunity that we need to be able to grow food. And this brings us to an important feature in that what we have found is that many of the farms that are in our community haven't been counted. And so we are launching the Office of Agriculture on August 13th here in downtown Jacksonville. We're inviting every farmer, from beekeepers to fisheries to aquaculture to protein to yard and gardens and farms. So what we're trying to do is make sure of who we have, where they are located, and how we as a city, as a county, as Duval County, can actually assist them into becoming productive and even more productive for the future of our community.
That is outstanding. I hope some of us from Chang Robotics can be associated with this. As you know, our mission is not only to be a productive commercial company, but we're primarily focused on social good and impact type projects. So using engineering basically to both automate and, more importantly, do things more environmentally conscious with a focus on how we can work with municipalities and commercial enterprises. So it's great to hear that. What are some of the most viable solutions to this issue of having more affordable vegetables, green leafy food for Jacksonville residents?
So there's actually a push in adaptive reuse. And so one of those things that we really like to talk about is how can we use what we have to make the future look different than what our past has been. And so the important feature of this is that my partner, Daryl Joseph over in Parks and Rec, is trying to look at the way he funds community gardens as parks. So as an example, we have two very viable parks, community garden parks in our city, and ironically, they don't know each other. So this is the kind of reason why we're trying to push people together. And what we have tried to do is find people within the community who are already farming, who we can elevate, who we can show this is the way in which they're farming. And so we are at a very interesting spot and an interesting way, opportunity that we have that has not been seen before. And we have the effects of climate change. So you know that my life I was just in Dubai at the climate conference in December, talking about how we can actually change the hunger landscape by decentralizing farming and putting food everywhere. So you have Nathan Valentine, who's over here in Springfield, who has a very interesting model for how people can actually farm, but not farm. They can actually get local produce, but they don't have to grow it. They just pay the subscription service. Then you have people who are doing yardens. Those are the new ways of what we call a farm in your yard, a yarden. And we have people who are doing that to support their families and augment their families' diets for fresh produce. Then you have people who want to enter the space. We have a program that we'll be launching here in this school year with Frank H. Peterson as well as Baldwin Middle High, in which the Master Gardeners program from University of Florida IFAS Extension is working in with the FFA and FNGLA teachers there at those two schools to show master gardening techniques with next generation opportunities, growing food for students to be able to see how food is grown and be able to actually have this opportunity. Because engineering plays a large part in agriculture of the future, and it doesn't look like tractors anymore.
Great. One last question. We're also interviewing a company that wants to expand in this area, and I wanted to get your advice on new entities coming into this space, because we've had some quick failures in what I would call the area of trying to either shorten the supply chain or actually through trays, as you mentioned, in old factories or unused buildings, to be able to actually create more of a commercial operation in urban areas. What advice would you give? And how can they work with the city of Jacksonville and the state of Florida and even, the federal government to get off the ground?
Yeah, so there's actually some really important things that I would say. First of all, you need to know the building, and you need to be able to, we are called the Sunshine State. We don't need to add energy to our buildings to be able to grow food. So I'm thinking of greenhouses on rooftops. I'm thinking of, spaces that we have that are contaminated where we could put next generation areas of grow where we don't use the land. We just use the land to build upon. These are the kinds of thoughts that I have going forward. The city of Jacksonville is keenly interested in projects that are sustainable, that are reducing the amount of energy needed, and grow food all over. We don't see mega farms as our operations going forward. We see it as decentralized operations, being able to put them all over our city so that they're within walking distance of every community in our city. The promise of consolidation is that everybody got equal treatment and equal opportunity. You will find that there are areas around our city that are especially hot, and especially in the urban core. And with the need to be able to solve food insecurity, homelessness, and next generation opportunities for everyone to be able to participate in next generation agriculture, we have a kind of a special situation going on.
That's amazing. We look forward to how this rolls forward. And again, thank you, Angela Tenbrock, and from the city of Jacksonville's Not only are you focused on your sustainability, but food security. We love that, and we look forward to having you back. Thank you for your time today. That was Angela Tenbrook. So we thank her for her participation. At this point, I want to introduce our two live guests. I want to welcome first Tim Amlaw, and then also Robert Sterling. I'll first introduce Tim. Tim is the chairman and CEO of Pure Harvests Food, based now out of Phoenix, Arizona. You can see his bio, all of his experience. It is very deep, and I look forward to getting the chance to talk to him. After we chat with Tim, we'll talk with Robert Sterling, and Robert is somebody with Koch Industries and other Cargill and other large private entities, has been a corporate finance leader, an investor himself, and an advisor. He is somebody that I think you're really going to enjoy, and will be the CFO heading the Chang Robotics Fund. And we look forward to hearing more from him in the future. So let's go ahead and get started, everybody. And we'll talk first with Tim. Hey, great to see you, Tim.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to the conversation. The previous conversation was kind of a good setup for me, because it really is something we've been focusing on for about the last 7 years or so.
Well, that's what we hoped, that everything would mesh together, Tim. And we're really happy to have you here. And first question I want to throw out there is kind of a general one. What are your ideas around improving the supply chain for fresh and leafy vegetables?
Yeah, just as the previous speaker had said, the issue on fresh leafy vegetables is a combination of things, right? It's existed for quite a while. There's a lot of fresh vegetables in our country. The problem is perishability. And most of those items, about 90%, I think, still are grown in Arizona, where I'm living, and in California. And it's seasonal, right? It switches from Arizona during the cooler months, and then as soon as it gets hot, it shifts to the central valleys of California. And those items in the last few years have been really taxed by increased pressures of transportation, and certainly by heat and preservation for this perishability issue. In fact, Walmart states that about 20% of their food assembly is lost to waste. So if you can figure how much food that could supply, I think it's quite substantial. But as the previous speaker talked about, I like a decentralized model of production. So we've been through this huge consolidation period with the theory of economy of scale, lowering the cost of produce. And certainly at the farm gate, produce is reasonably inexpensive in reality. But the problem is when you add the packaging costs, food preservation costs, distribution costs, and all those things, it becomes very expensive. And so far, even in our sector of indoor farming, whether it be warehouse farming or greenhouse farming, or in our case, a modular container farming, those costs of entry have been high. It's a high cost of developing those technologies. And the second thing is that their cost of goods is way too high. And that's what we've been working on for the last 7 years, is how to bring a system together that's micro-scaled, as the previous speaker had talked, so it could be very decentralized. Even across the city, you can have multiple locations, and those locations can be easily accessed, but the cost of goods will be much lower than anyone else. And we've accomplished that through our technology advancements, which are energy costs that are roughly about 60% of any other indoor farming technology. And so that's really that's about 60%, by the way, of cost of goods is energy. So we've reduced that dramatically, and we think that's going to be an advantage in pricing local food.
So tell us about the Pure Harvests. You mentioned modular containment concept or focus, and explain a little bit about that to us.
Yeah, the design is really, and Matthew Chang has contributed a lot with our initial team to set this all up, like some of his other projects. But it's designed around energy, really. So we start with a material, which is a patented material that doesn't allow for heat transmission. So if you build a box, for instance, you can cool the box inside, but the outside doesn't get cool. If the outside is extremely hot, the inside stays cool. And it's a well-tested material. It's very strong and rigorous. Literally, from the energy standpoint, it really creates the first level of efficiency relative to energy use. And then all of the other systems that we've designed, for instance, motor controls that work with pumps and air conditioning systems, they're all at a reduced rate of energy use too. Those are all patented systems that we have. And all of those systems will operate at an efficiency level, like I said, at probably about 60% or lower. It could be as low as 40%. So if you think about a motor that's going to run a pump, the startup energy is quite high to run that pump. Ours work at about 40% of that startup energy. So that drops to the bottom line, lowering our cost of goods, and so on. And we've got some other technologies that will apply in plant fertilization and other things, but these all create efficiencies, but at a small scale. So the units themselves, the chambers, there's about 8 to 9 chambers that are assembled in what we call our pod. And that production will be about 2 million plus pounds per annum. So that's a lot of leafy vegetables in your neighborhood, for instance. So it can be your farm. It's very agreeable to work in. Those temperatures inside those units are going to be around 70, 75 degrees, because that's where most leafy vegetables like to live, like we do. And unfortunately, here in Arizona, we have to live in 115 degrees. So it's nice to have a vegetable living more comfortably than I am. But in general terms, all of those things really add to the efficiencies of those units of output of 2 million pounds per pod. And if the program, if we launch, for instance, in Jacksonville, as an example, if we launch in Jacksonville, we can launch one pod and take it to market and see how everybody receives the product, both on freshness, flavor, and tenderness. Obviously, that's what I look for in vegetables. And also on the perishability, how long it will last in a family of 4 or a family of 2. Or in my case, a single person, so I don't have to throw it away. How long will it last? Because we're going to harvest, and we've done this in our testing, from seed to 1 pound, 16 ounces of weight in a romaine head of lettuce. We've accomplished 18 days to harvest, which is just unbelievable in my mind. Again, I have to caution everybody, we still have to build the full commercial models and go against our assumptions. And that's been the difficulty in the sector, is so many people have tried. The average probably in a greenhouse is upwards of 35 to 40 days. There's some other efficiencies in 28 days, but their costs are so high. So those products can't be universally bought by everybody. Our objective has been from the very beginning in design and engineering, and I've been in the farming business all my life. I'm 70 now, and so I'm an old hat at farming. And so it's really one of our things is to bring not necessarily the lowest cost, but an affordable product that has more nutrition. It can be consumed within 4 days, which in any leafy product is the maximum nutritional value of a harvested leafy product.
Well, it seems that you've answered some of the next question I had for you, which is bridging the gap between what is the current supply chain, and as you said, from Arizona or Central Valley, California, to this new paradigm. So what are some of the things that your organization, Pure Harvests, in your plans will do to bridge that gap? And explain that a little bit to us so that our audience better understands that.
Yeah, I think we're at the very cusp of a revolutionary change in farming. As Angela had said, the future is not centralized in consolidations. It's worked very well, by the way, for many, many years, but now it's facing a lot of issues. And most of those probably stem to the costs of environmental impact and other things, and cost of equipment and all that. And indoor farming has the same issue. Our entry cost for equipment and these facilities has been quite high. We hope to bring that down to a reasonable cost of production per square foot. Our yields are high, which, in a commodity market, which is what we're producing, right? A commodity product, not necessarily a specialty. We can get into those diversifications, but we're trying to produce a commodity leafy product. So it has to be priced at a benchmark price that's competitive with the field crop prices that are coming from California or Arizona delivered to Jacksonville, or even the local product. And so when we're talking about this assembly of available food, those things need to be addressed up front to make sure your system designs address those cost issues for the consumer, production cost issues for the manufacturer. And so how we can integrate those is we see this as a horizontal integration in reality. So people that are in the vegetable production now are going to look for new systems of production to keep their businesses alive. They already have market penetration. Taylor Farms, for instance, has market penetration. You can buy their bag salad everywhere. Dole has a huge processing facility for salads up in North Carolina. Or I think it's North Carolina. Anyway, the long and short is they all need new supply. And if you can deliver farm gate supply that's competitively priced, then they'll be interested in this local distribution of food that's far different than the model that's out there now, which is massive assembly and lots of losses. I think Dole still loses about 40% of its purchases in the field for waste before they can process and give you a high quality bag salad. So those are impact issues that we've covered and researched quite dearly, and then drove our engineering to see, first of all, initially, to see if we could even answer them. I first went to Walmart, and all this started, by the way, when I had a surprise heart attack at 60. And the nutritionist told me the next day that, what have you been doing for diet? And I went through it, and she kind of slapped me, I think. But she said, you got to change. And she said, why not more vegetables? And I said, well, my personal feeling was they didn't taste good. So then I told my partners, okay, we're going to look at this. So I called an old acquaintance of mine, Jack Sinclair, who at the time was second in command at groceries at Walmart. And I simply said, Jack, are you looking at this indoor farming, this design and engineering? And he said, we are, but our motto is high quality at the lowest price to give our consumers that benefit. And so I took that in mind, and then we went down other quality performance metrics that he needed. And that's what we started our engineering on, and said, if we can answer these questions, but do it at a local basis, at the smallest economic model that we could design and engineer that was profitable, by the way. So each one of our pods is fully profitable with what we estimate will be about a 32% EBITDA, which is almost unheard of in agriculture. So if we can pull it off, and I will caution everybody in the conversation, we have yet to build our first commercial model, but we believe in it wholeheartedly, and we have high level of confidence in our engineers, our scientists, and those people behind the thing. And if we can pull it off and build a small scale model to demonstrate it fully commercially, then I think it will have maximum exploitation around the country in local communities. And our motto is better farms, better foods locally. And that's why we feel very much like Angela, we have to look at models that decentralize. We can't have large transportations. However, again, another caution, right now it's pretty limited to leafy vegetables. So when other people are trying strawberries, and the reason they're trying strawberries is they're a pretty high cost produce if you're going to buy them as a consumer. So they have some margin to play with. But we're looking at things like broccoli and cauliflower. And interestingly enough, who I met with Matthew, a gentleman with a frozen food company in California, one of the largest producing frozen foods, told me that the most nutrition is in a broccoli stem or a cauliflower stem, not the head, not the flower part, but
we
in the
cut
stem.
those off, don't we?
Well, the interesting thing is that's the easiest thing for us to grow in. It's high productivity. And if we don't have to go to the flower stage, the yield is quite large.
Yeah, very good. Well, I have my green handkerchief in honor of Pure Harvests, okay,
Thank
and
you.
our topic today. And I just wanted you to know that, I see this almost like the opportunity is to have sort of a food truck, but it produces leafy vegetables in a pod, so to speak, and actually is this this little factory producing organic leafy vegetables is, I think, both novel and amazing. So I'm really happy that you joined us today, and I do have one additional question to kind of finish us off, and that is, how will this, what is the need here? In other words, how will this help alleviate some of the fresh food deserts that Angela talked about in Jacksonville and other cities like Jacksonville?
Yeah, much like Angela, I served on the Maricopa County Food Systems Coalition, which was what Angela was talking about, gathering all the people who are in local food currently that nobody really sometimes doesn't know. Part of that is marketing dollars, right? People who grow food in a small scale don't have huge amounts of money to start marketing. They go to local, markets to sell their produce, but it's a very slow traction kind of thing.
Right.
The difference in our system is that we can come in and collaboratively work together with the whole food system, right? That's local. We can enhance that food system awareness because we're producing 2 million pounds of produce, right? So it gives us a little different entry locally to give a full impact of local food. And we did a big survey here in Phoenix to talk about that. And it really becomes a level of communication primarily for people's awareness, right? It's one thing to set up, and, I've been a professor and taught at school as you have. And it's one thing to put out theoretical concepts. It's another to do applied science. And that's what we hope to do in the local thing. It's very new. This sector is still very nascent. And so it needs a push, and we hope to provide that. And then we'll find out, we'll find the pitfalls and we'll find the successes that we can accomplish together. But it's a community effort. It's got to be a community effort. And that's what we intend to do in every location.
That's great. Well, Tim, it's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you today. Tim Amlaw, CEO of Pure Harvests. Thank you again for being on the Chang Robotics Brand Call today. And it's great to see you. And we hope to have you back again as you make progress towards not only that first prototype, but rolling out. Maybe it will be Jacksonville and be exciting for us as our headquarters is here.
Yeah,
yes.
We'd be more than happy.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great seeing you. All right.
Bye-bye.
So at this point, we will transition, and I'd like to welcome Robert Sterling. And Robert, it's great to have you here on the Chang Robotics Brand Call. How are you doing today?
Good, Don. Good to see you. Appreciate the invite here. I'm excited for this.
Well, I want to start out first. Matthew introduced the team that's going to be is launching the Chang Robotics Fund, and as CFO, what career experiences prepared you for this opportunity? Because you seem to be the exact right person at the right time.
No, I appreciate the kind words. I have a long background in mergers and acquisitions. So I worked for a couple large companies, Koch Industries, which is a large industrial conglomerate. Worked there for 6 years doing deals in the metals and mining industry, energy, bulk commodities, software, a lot of different sectors. Worked at Cargill as well, which is a large agriculture company, primarily doing deals in renewable energy and the protein industry. And a few years ago, decided I had a little bit more passion and enthusiasm for the world of mid-market companies and startups. So I've been the CFO of a number of venture-backed startup companies. I met Matthew Chang about 6 or 7 months ago, became good friends with him, got to meet you and the rest of the team, and really just excited to be a part of the journey here.
That's great. It's really great to be working closely with you. And I want to get your thoughts on what makes the Chang Robotics Fund so appealing for potential investors. And, maybe you could highlight some of the differences that you see with this particular fund, and the engineering involvement from Chang Robotics, and many of these portfolio companies that have been identified already have some customer or revenue traction, and certainly all of them have huge social good benefits in addition to being profit gaining and revenue producing entities.
Absolutely. So starting with the overall mission here, we are investing in companies that create tremendous value in society. So the companies we're investing in, they result in greater energy efficiency and greater labor efficiency and overall benefits, not just for businesses, but for stakeholders across society. So I get really excited there as we look at the agriculture industry, as we look at the medical industry, for example, where there's a nationwide nursing shortage. Our technology is going to enable businesses to operate better and create more value for customers, patients, families across society. So I get really excited about that. However, that mission-driven type of investment isn't necessarily unique. So as powerful as that is, that doesn't necessarily differentiate the Chang Robotics Fund. Where I get really excited about the differentiation here is that we are actively involved in these portfolio companies, which is very unique. If you think about venture capital, if you think about capital allocation, investors are typically outside the company. And so when you're looking at an investment, when you're doing the underwriting process, when you're meeting the team, when you're doing your financial due diligence, you're always outside the company looking in. After you make your investment, you probably get seats on the board of directors. So you are one of, call it 5 to 8 people overseeing the company at a high level. But even from that position, from that vantage point, you're not actively involved on a day-to-day basis the way that we are. So with Chang Robotics doing the engineering work, combined with the investments that we're making, with the board seats that we gain, we're able to really see things at a very high level strategically. We're also able to see the intimate details of the company, not just during the diligence process, but on a day-to-day basis as we're supporting these companies. So as we're doing the engineering work, as we're designing these facilities, as we're developing the new technologies, as we're conducting the research and development, we're there on the ground level, while we're also there at a very high level with governance rights and the ability to shape the strategy and the direction of the company. And what that does is it creates this very mutually beneficial relationship between the company and between the fund. So for the company, they're getting all the expertise of Chang Robotics, which is a very powerful group of engineers and business developers. For Chang Robotics, though, what we're getting through the fund is the ability to do a better job of underwriting our investments. Because we're not just seeing materials that are in a data room. We're not just doing interviews. We've been involved with the company in an operational and an engineering capacity. So we create value for the portfolio companies. We also create value for the investors in our fund because we're better able to select and structure our investments. So it's a very powerful relationship between the two entities. And it does a really nice job of aligning the incentives between the portfolio companies and the fund itself.
Thank you for that. And in practice, the idea based on what I could understand there is that then I call it potential for not only success, but seeing some of the big problems or pivoting at the right time seems to be enhanced given the engineering involvement. I would assume that all these portfolio companies then, the either all the engineering or a major portion of the engineering and the innovation that's happening is driven by Chang Robotics team members in addition to their own. So that's an inside view that you don't really see usually in a portfolio. And so I really appreciate that perspective. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And Don, you're spot on. We get a lot more information. And just as importantly, we get our information a lot quicker. If you think about a traditional governance relationship, if you need to pivot the engineering work, if the engineering team says, hey, this prototype just doesn't work, or whatever it might be, it could be the sales and marketing team saying, hey, this go-to-market strategy is not going to work. When you think about the path it takes to go from that level of the business all the way through the senior executive team to the board of directors, there's a lengthy period of time. Right. The board of directors at that point has to make a decision, which also takes time, and then socialize and communicate that decision back throughout the organization. Because we sit at multiple levels of the organization, because we're down here doing the engineering work and working with the business development team, as well as being up here with the board of directors and the investors, the velocity of information is a lot faster, which means the decision-making is better and it's more timely. So in those situations, we're able to pivot more quickly. We're able to adjust our strategy more quickly if need be, which makes it easier to preserve our cash runway. It makes it more likely that our next iteration of the company, if we do change the strategy, is going to be successful. So there's a lot that this type of relationship does to drive value for the portfolio company, as well as for the fund itself.
So as CFO, you have this bird's eye view of both the portfolio companies chosen by the fund to invest in, and at the same time, you have an opportunity to work with your counterparts that are the CFOs and running the CEOs that are running these portfolio organizations to help them, I don't want to say package them, but help prepare them for potentially large, I'll call it growth, uptrends, and at the same time, maybe even strategic investments or sales to Fortune 100 companies.
Exactly.
What is your experience there, and is that in line with kind of your philosophy on how things will move forward?
It is. It absolutely is. You know, when you look at a lot of these businesses, these are, as they scale larger, these are capital intensive businesses. We're talking about building manufacturing plants, building supply chains. And so what I like to be able to do with the background I have in larger companies is support these smaller startups with that type of process, with that type of growth. So as we think about building industrial facilities that might be several hundreds of millions of dollars, or as we put together these lengthy supply chains, what we want to be able to do is support them commercially, not just with the engineering work. So we can help them think through, how do you capitalize this type of project? If you're going to go build a $300 million production plant, what's the right way to do that? What's the right team of investors to put together to support that process? There's a lot we can do from an engineering standpoint commercially, and it's just a really exciting partnership between the fund and the portfolio companies we're going to get to support.
Well, thank you for your perspective, Robert. It's been really, really great to talk to you today, and I know we'll have you back as these portfolio companies are selected and you have the opportunity to kind of look under the hood in a way that you haven't been able to yet. And we look forward
Absolutely.
to having you back and hearing more from you. And so thank you, Robert Sterling, for being part of the Chang Robotics Brand Call today. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks so much, Don. Appreciate the invite, and it's been my pleasure. Really appreciate your time and appreciate your audience's time as well.
That's great. We at this point want to talk about Q&A. Any questions or that either for our guests or for Matthew or myself. So Cheyenne or Lane, are there any questions out there that we can field at this point?
Yes, I see one that says, can you tell us about some of the management talent in these portfolio teams?
Great. Yeah. Matthew, would you mind fielding that one, or you want me to? Either.
Yeah. So all of these companies that we're looking at, and as the fund is launched, people will learn more about that through the investment documents. But all the companies we're looking at are founder-led. And you got to meet one of the founders, Tim Amlaw. So I guess we let the cat out of the bag there. But it's exciting because these are people that are taking career expertise and career passion, and they're pouring it into innovation and building something to leave their legacy on for their own careers. And the other thing that I love is that we've found a group of founders that do want to make the world a better place. Environmental reasons, health reasons, nutrition. And so that's exciting because I think when we read the national headlines, it's easy to fall into despair about the things that are happening nationally and globally. But then one of the things we need to focus on doing is to see the good that's happening, the optimism and the great work that people are doing. So when you have people that have distinguished careers that then pour their passion into a startup as a founder, and they invest in technology and research to take the country to the next level and into the future, that is so aligned with the type of work we want to be doing. So it's in all the companies, what people will experience is that there's a pre-existing relationship. Tim Amlaw and I still remember the day we met was January 1st, 2017. And Tim picked up the phone and called me after I was writing articles on food safety and just bringing better quality food to the consumers. And we started synergizing from that day. And it also highlighted the relentlessness because it was New Year's Day and he was taking his day to call me. And then I was taking the time to have a conversation with him because his work was important and his passion was very obvious. So that's what people are going to see from all of these companies in the management teams as original founder teams, the original expertise that led to scientific breakthrough. And then also what we'll be doing is we'll be helping work with those companies as they do need to professionalize. Even in our company, the person that started the company is not the person that runs it, right? And so that's going to also be a common theme is what got you here won't get you there. We will be bringing reinforcements through our network to the portfolio companies on a selective basis where they need to level up. It could be corporate finance. It could be business development and marketing. And wherever they need to level up, we're going to be supporting them in that. For the folks on the call that are observing, Dr. Kapner is a dean of business. He's an expert in marketing. And Robert Sterling, who you just met, is an expert in finance and leveling up companies that were started and then later go on to be acquired by the Cargills and the Koch Industries of the world. So that's something we'll be very collaborative with our portfolio companies is we want to support these founders. We want their vision to become reality. And we want to be the catalyst both through access to capital and then engineering talent to enable that.
Great. Well, let's take at least one more question before we end with some updates in the news from Chang Robotics. So do we have another question?
Yes. So this question is regarding IP. It says you've talked about IP a lot in past webinars and in this one. Why is IP development so important for the portfolio companies and for the fund? So
I'm going to ask Matthew to follow on as the color commentary, but I'm going to take a shot at that question. When you look at any organization, and I teach this in university setting, in MBA programs, even in doctoral programs for business, that a company's value is not just the sum total of the current cash flow and even the product portfolio that they have. And it's often the goodwill that's part of both the brand story and just the ability to innovate, bring new products, new ideas, and to be able to protect them in the marketplace. The idea of intellectual property is that that private property in our country and some of all the developing countries, the top developing countries in the world, are protected. Sometimes it's 7 years, sometimes it's more through patents and trademarks and things. And the intellectual property development is a key part of the goodwill that creates value in organizations. And whether they're purchased by private equity, go public, or what have you, a huge part of the value that they provide stockholders or they provide a future buyer is the intellectual property and this goodwill. So that's the fact that these portfolio companies all are developing intellectual property. Kodiak Tech, as an example, already has at least 1 or 2 patents that I know, Snowflow and others, that is going to be really incredible for the marketplace. They and other companies are developing this IP at a rate that it's very hard for even large Fortune 1,000 companies to replicate. So, Matthew, can you add on to that?
Well, not to the business school answer because you are the dean, but what I can say is that with our team of talented professionals at our company, what we're very proficient at is developing IP roadmaps. And so we're able to go into almost any technology-driven company to assess where they're at today and what are the different steps of technology jump they're going to have to get to that envisioned future. Once we've developed an IP roadmap and we know what the different steps along the journey are going to be, we're able to then convert that to a patent tree and say, what are the foundational patents and the secondary patents and the tertiary patents that are going to be required to develop that goodwill part of the company. And for those with a non-finance background, goodwill can oftentimes be one of the largest assets on a company's balance sheet. And so it does drive value for the company. And then being able to tactically get in there and do the work with the IP roadmap, the patent tree, and then the subsequent patent filing to be able to create that and then bring it to reality, that's a big area that we add value both to our current clients inside of our own company and also to our portfolio companies.
Thank you for that. We just have a few minutes, and Cheyenne or Lane, if we could have Matthew help us talk about Chang Robotics in the news, and then we will end today's brand call.
Super. So just to keep you guys connected to what we're doing, we are always looking to expand our partnerships. So one of the first articles there is a new partnership announced with Engineered Products. A lot of tomorrow's automation doesn't have physical infrastructure that fits it today. And Engineered Products is a very innovative company. They specialize in producing steel structures. And what that's going to let us do is build custom steel structures on a project-specific basis using Engineered Products as our manufacturing plant. So whatever the automation challenge is of tomorrow, be it in manufacturing, e-commerce, healthcare, or another market, we're going to be able to do the manufacturing of the structures. We also are super excited. We have continued our growth, and we're recognized as the number 13 data and analytics tech services company. So we continue to climb the rankings there. Some of our executives have been published recently sharing their views on manufacturing innovation. So we're proud of Chris Kalura and his very forward-looking articles on that you can find those on the internet. The Entrepreneur Society Board of Advisors recently featured myself and Dr. Kapner as some of the leading innovators and thinkers in their group. And so we look to continue adding value to other entrepreneurs. And by putting ourselves out there in community is the way that we create this action in the marketplace and find companies that we want to either partner with or invest in. And then finally, and probably the most fun one for me, was we were recently able to assert that we are producing the most powerful battery electric vehicle on Earth. And of course, when I initially thought that could be true, I was nervous to make that claim because you always read headlines about this huge piece of equipment here or there that a famous company is building. And so I embarked on a rigorous search to see, can I find any data to support that somebody else is building a more powerful battery electric vehicle? And I could not. And then I went around the industry and interviewed all the insiders that I knew and said, hey, is it possible that this is true? And everyone agreed that we do believe that the Kodiak Technologies vehicle that we are jointly designing with Roush out of Detroit is the most powerful battery electric vehicle on Earth. And even more exciting, is designed to operate in sub-zero temperatures. So we're really trying to push the boundaries of what the industry sees as possible. And so hopefully some of these headlines kind of register as some of the different areas that we're out there in the marketplace experimenting.
So Matthew, how would somebody get involved with the Chang Robotics Fund?
Yep. Well, there's always three ways. So time, talent, and treasure. For anyone that is an expert, and we've had many industry experts join our team just this year, we would love to just have your time. Come work on this exciting stuff with us. It is exciting. It is the future, and we want to leave the world a better place for our kids and our grandchildren. The next would be talent, and I would really categorize that as connections and resources. So for folks that have the ability to quickly make a connection that might be hard for us to do working kind of the old-fashioned way, then please reach out and do that. A quick phone call or connection could be a game changer for the speed at which we can deploy some of these ideas. And then finally, for folks that are investors, we would love to have you consider getting involved in the Chang Robotics Fund. And I believe that probably by the next time we have a brand call, we'll have published legal documents and be in full compliance there. So we would love for those folks to go ahead and subscribe and express some interest and say, hey, we'd like to be considered. And then we look forward to working through that backlog of the existing list of folks that have told us they want to be involved financially in the Chang Robotics Fund. And what the result of their investment will do is just help these founders go faster, right? As we're able to place that important seed capital into companies, those companies have kind of the fuel for growth that they need. They have us on hand for the engineering support. And so that's a way that an investor can help this future become reality much faster.
Thanks for summing that up, Matthew. And I want to thank all of our participants, especially Angela, Tim, Robert. And again, thank you for everyone. Here's a quick overview of the fund and some of the folks that are helping drive innovation with our companies we've identified as potential portfolio companies. And again, we want to thank everyone for their participation today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next brand call, which will be in August, and we'll send out the invitations for that and look forward to, we'll have new guests, new information, new updates. Thanks everyone, and check out this. If you want to check out the QR code, you can get more information on the Chang Robotics Fund. So thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon and look forward to connecting with you. Thank you.